Okay, for this video, we'll be talking about idea generation and evaluation. So this is the first part of this video. The contents of this will be about invention and innovation, types of innovation and sources of innovative opportunities. And later on will be principles of successful innovation, scamper, a method for idea generation and evaluating business idea. So sorry for the spelling. The difference in invention and innovation. Invention is the creation of new products, processes, and technologies not previously known to exist. So that's an invention. And innovation is the transformation of creative ideas into useful application by combining resources in new or unusual ways to provide value to society through improved products, technology, or services. So maybe it's not yet very clear what's the difference, but later on in the examples, I think you will know the difference between an invention and innovation. So here's the difference. So here are discoveries or invention, and here are the equivalent innovation. So let's say, for example, X-ray is an invention, and the innovation is turning this invention into something that is productive, let's say medical X-ray. So the discovery of light sensitivity of silver compounds, this lead to photography and cameras. And the discovery of semiconductors, we have radios. Innovation. So using these conductors, we have created radios. Storage of data on magnetic surfaces. So this leads to magnetic tapes, cassettes, and diskettes. Lasers, this also lead to CDs and DVDs. And discovery of this formula, nuclear power, is the innovation. So these are based on these inventions. In a market-driven economy, the real winner is the company that can make something valuable through innovation, not the inventor, who happens to come up with something that the market may or may not want. Innovation happens when you figure out how to make money from an invention. Necessity is the mother of invention profit, motive, and creativity are the parents of innovation. So these are Schumpeter's types of innovation. So innovation can be because of a new source of supply. It can be a new technology, a new commodity or product, new markets, or a new type of organization. And here's Drucker's 7 sources of innovative opportunities: the unexpected, the incongruity, the innovation based on process needs, changes in industry or market structure, demographics, changes in perception, mood, meaning, and also new knowledge. So let's try to read some examples of this. So here's the sources of innovation. So according to, who's the author again? Drucker. So unexpected occurrences. Consider first the easiest and simplest source of innovation opportunity, the unexpected. So in the early 1930s, IBM developed the first modern accounting machine, which was designed for banks. But banks in 1933 did not buy the new equipment. And you know what saved the company? That's why it's called unexpected. According to a story that Thomas Watson Sr., the company's founder and long-term CEO, often told, was its exploitation of an unexpected success. The New York Public Library wanted to buy a machine. Unlike the banks, libraries in those early New Deal days had money, and Watson sold more than 100 of his otherwise unsaleable machines to libraries. So this was made for banks, but it was the library who actually bought the machine. So 15 years later, when everyone believed that computers were designed for advanced scientific work, business unexpectedly showed an interest in a machine that could do payroll. So Univac, which had the most advanced machine, spurned business applications, but IBM immediately realized it faced a possible unexpected success, redesigned what was basically Univac's machine for such mundane applications as payroll, and within 5 years became a leader in the computer industry, a position it has maintained up to this day. The unexpected failure may be an equally important source of innovation opportunities. Everyone knows about the Ford Edsel as the biggest new car failure in automotive history. What very few people seem to know, however, is that the Edsel's failure was the foundation for much of the company's later success. Ford planned the Edsel, the most carefully designed car to that point in American automotive history, to give the company a full product line with which to compete with General Motors. When it bombed, despite all the planning, market research, and design had gone into it, Ford realized that something was happening in the automobile market that ran counter to the basic assumptions on which GM and everyone else had been designing and marketing cars. No longer was the market segmented primarily by income groups. The new principle of segmentation was what we now call lifestyles. Ford's response was the Mustang, a car that gave the company distinct personality and reestablished it in an industry leader. Unexpected success and failures are such productive sources of innovation opportunities because most businesses dismiss them, disregard them, and even resent them. The German scientists who around 1905 synthesized Novocaine, the first non-addictive narcotic, had intended it to be used in major surgical procedures like amputation. Surgeons, however, preferred total anesthesia for such procedures. They still do. Instead of Novocaine found a ready appeal among dentists. So its inventor spent the remaining years of his life traveling from dental school to dental school, making speeches that forbade dentists from misusing the noble invention in application for which he had not intended it. So there are other examples, but let's go to the next one. Incongruities. Alcon Laboratories was one of the success stories of the 1960s because Bill Conner, the company's co-founder, exploited an incongruity in medical technology. The cataract operation is the world's third or fourth most common surgical procedure. During the past 300 years, doctors systematized it to the point that the only old-fashioned step left was the cutting of a ligament. Eye surgeons had learned to cut the ligament with complete success, but it was so different a procedure from the rest of the operation, and so incompatible with it that they often dreaded it. So it was incongruous. Doctors had known for 50 years about an enzyme that could dissolve the ligament without cutting. All Conner did was to add a preservative to this enzyme that gave it a few months shelf life. Eye surgeons immediately accepted the new compound, and Alcon found itself with a worldwide monopoly. 15 years later, Nestle brought the company to a fancy price. So such incongruity within the logic or rhythm of a process is only one possibility out of which innovation opportunities may arise. Another source of incongruity between economic realities. For instance, whenever an industry had a steadily growing market but failing profit margins, as say in the steel industry of developed countries between 1950s and 1970, the incongruity exists. The innovation response is minimal. Process needs. Anyone who had ever driven in Japan knows that the country has no modern highway system. Its roads still follow the path laid down for or by ox carts in the 10th century. What makes the system work for automobiles and trucks is an adaptation of the reflector used on American highways since the early 1930s. The reflector lets each car see which others cars are approaching from any one of a half-dozen directions. This minor invention, which enables traffic to move smoothly and with a minimum of accidents, exploited a process need. So, yung pangangailangan. So, what we now call the media had its origin in two innovations developed around 1890 in response to process needs. One was Ottmar Mergenthaler's linotype, which made it possible to produce newspapers quickly in a large volume. The other was social innovation, modern advertising, invented by the first true newspaper publishers, Adolph Oaks of the New York Times, Joseph Pulitzer of the New York World, and William Randolph Hearst. Advertising made it possible for them to distribute news particularly free of charge, with the profit coming from marketing. So these are from process needs. Industry and market changes. Managers may believe that industry structures are or ordained by the good Lord, but these structures can, and often do, change overnight. Such change creates tremendous opportunity for innovation. One of American business great success stories in recent decades is the brokerage firm of Donaldson, Lufkin, and GENERATON, recently acquired by the Equitable Life Assurance Society. DL&J was founded in 1960 by three young men, all graduates of the Harvard University Business School, who realized that the structure of the financial industry was changing as institutional investors become dominant. These young men had practically no capital and no connections. Still, within a few years, their firm had become a leader in the move to negotiated commissions and one of Wall Street's stellar performers. It was the first to be incorporated and go public. So industry and market changes. In similar fashion, changes in industry structure have created massive innovation opportunities for American health and care products. During the past 15 years, independent surgical and psychiatric clinics, emergency centers, and HMOs have opened throughout the country. Comparable opportunities in the telecommunications followed industry upheavals in transmission with the emergence of MCI and Sprint in the long-distance service, and in equipment with the emergence of such companies as Rome and in the manufacturing of private and branch exchanges. Demographic changes. Of the outside source of innovation opportunities, demographics are most reliable. Demographic events have known lead times. For instance, every person who will be in the American labor force by the year 2000 has already been born. Yet, because policy makers often neglect demographics, those who watch them and exploit them can reap great rewards. The Japanese are ahead in robotics because they paid attention to demographics. Everyone in the developed countries around 1970 or so knew that there was both a baby bust and an education explosion going on. About half or more of the young people were staying school beyond high school. So consequently, the number of people available for traditional blue-collar work in manufacturing was bound to decrease and become inadequate by 1990s. Everyone knew this, but only the Japanese acted on it, and they now have a 10-year lead in robotics. Changes in perception. The glass is half full, the glass is half empty are descriptions of same phenomenon but have vastly different meanings. Changing a manager's perception of a glass from half full to half empty opens up big innovation opportunities. All factual evidence indicates, for instance, that in the last 20 years, Americans' health has improved with unprecedented speed, whether measured by mortality rates for the newborn, survival rates for the very old, and the incidence of cancers, other than lung cancer, cancer cure rates, or other factors. Even so, collective hypochondria grips the nation. Never before has there been so much concern with or fear about health. Suddenly, everything seems to cause cancer or degenerative heart disease or premature loss of memory. The glass clearly half empty. So rather than rejoicing in great improvements in health, Americans seem to be emphasizing how far away they still are from immortality. This view of things has created many opportunities for innovations. Market for new healthcare magazines, for exercise classes and jogging equipment, and for all kinds of health foods. The fastest growing new U.S. business in 1983 was a company that makes indoor exercise equipment. A change in perception does not alter facts. It changes their meaning, though. Very quickly. It took less than 2 years for the computer to change from being perceived as a threat and or something as only big business would use to something one buys for doing income tax. Economics do not necessarily dictate such change. In fact, they may be irrelevant. What determines whether people see a glass as a half full or half empty is mood rather than in fact. And a change in mood often defies quantification, but it's not exotic. It's not concrete. It can be defined, it can be tested, and it can be exploited for innovation opportunity. Then the seventh one, I think this is the last one, is a new knowledge. Among history-making innovations, those that are based on new knowledge, whether scientific, technical, or social, rank high. They are the superstars of entrepreneurship. They get the publicity and money. They are what people usually mean when they talk of innovation, although not all innovations based on knowledge are important. Knowledge-based innovations differ from all those in the time they take, in their casualty rates and in their predictability, as well as in the challenges they pose to entrepreneurs. Like most superstars, they can be temperamental, capricious, and hard to direct. They have, for instance, the longest lead time of all innovations. There is a protracted span between the emergence of new knowledge and its distillation into usable technology. Then there is another long period before its new technology appears in the marketplace in products, process, or services. Overall, the lead time involved is something like 50 years, a figure that has not shortened appreciably throughout history. So, these are the seven sources of innovative opportunities by Drucker, and the rest of the slide will be discussed on the next video. So thank you very much for viewing this video.